All right, ready for a deep dive into product management interviews.
Let's do it.
We're tackling the Product Manager Interview by Louis C. Lin, and let me tell you, this book is intense.
Definitely intense, but in a good way.
It's like the ultimate prep guide, right?
Absolutely. It's packed with everything you need to know, from understanding different interview types to nailing those tricky behavioral questions.
It's structured almost like a course, 36 days, each day focusing on a different aspect of the interview.
Yeah, I like that. It breaks down this massive goal of acing your PM interview into these bite-sized, manageable pieces.
Totally. So you're not just cramming the night before, you're actually building a solid foundation.
Exactly. And it covers such a wide range of topics. You've got product design, metrics, strategy, even those brain-bending estimation questions.
Don't even get me started on those estimation questions like, how am I supposed to know how many golf balls fit in a Boeing 747?
Right. But that's the point, isn't it? It's not about knowing the exact answer. It's about how you think through the problem.
Showing your work, like in math class, but instead of equations, it's logic and common sense.
And a little bit of creative estimation. The book actually breaks down a bunch of those estimations, like how many piano tuners are there in Chicago, or even the potential Dropbox users in Paris talk about specific.
Okay, that actually makes me feel a little better knowing they walk you through it.
Oh, they totally do. And speaking of walking you through things, one thing I really appreciated was their emphasis on practice.
Yeah, they're big on finding a practice partner, someone you can bounce ideas off of and do mock interviews with.
It's like having a built-in support system as you're going through this process, which can be super helpful, especially if you're feeling nervous or overwhelmed. And you know what they say? Practice makes perfect, or at least it makes you a lot more confident and prepared.
True that. And they even have a Slack group for this, right? For finding practice partners.
Yep. We'll be sure to include the link in the show notes. But that just goes to show how serious they are about this whole practice thing.
It's like they're giving you all the tools you need to succeed. You just have to put in the work.
Exactly. And speaking of tools, let's talk about this circles method for product design questions. I'll admit, when I first saw that name, I was a little skeptical.
Circles method, it does sound a little like, I don't know, a self-help seminar or something.
Right, but it's actually pretty brilliant. Imagine you're hit with a question like, how would you improve Google Maps? Now, you could just start brainstorming randomly, but the circles method gives you a framework, a roadmap to structure your thinking.
So instead of panicking, you can be like, okay, let me put on my circles hat and tackle this systematically.
Exactly. And that's what interviewers want to see, that you have a structured approach to problem solving. They're not just looking for the right answer. They're looking for how you think.
So it's like, even if your solution isn't perfect, if you can clearly articulate your thought process using the circles method, you're still in good shape.
Exactly. It shows you can think critically, break down complex problems, and communicate your ideas effectively, which are all essential skills for a product manager.
And that's what this book is all about, giving you the tools and the confidence to rock that interview and land your dream PM job.
Absolutely. It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
Okay, so we've talked about practice, we've talked about the circles method, but what about those dreaded estimation questions?
Ah, yes, the ones that make you feel like you're back in high school math class, sweating over a pop quiz.
Exactly. And they always seem so random and impossible to answer. Like, how many ping pong balls can you fit in a school bus? Who even thinks of these things?
I know, right? But the book does a great job of demystifying these questions. It's not about knowing the exact answer. It's about demonstrating your thought process, your ability to break down a complex problem into smaller, more manageable pieces.
So it's less about being a human calculator and more about being a logical thinker.
Exactly. Like, let's say they ask you to estimate the market size for a new fitness app in London. You wouldn't just blurt out a random number. You'd start by considering the population of London. Then you might factor in demographics, lifestyle trends, maybe even the weather.
Okay, so you're using logic and reasonable assumptions to arrive at an estimate. It's like solving a puzzle.
Exactly. And the more you practice these types of questions, the more comfortable you'll become with the process. It's like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
That makes me feel a lot better. So it's not about memorizing a bunch of formulas. It's about developing a framework for approaching these problems.
Exactly. And speaking of frameworks, there's another one in the book that I found super helpful, and it's called the AARM framework, which stands for Acquisition, Activation, Retention, and Monetization.
AARM. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's so special about this framework?
Well, it's a really useful tool for understanding and analyzing product metrics. It helps you look at your product's performance from different angles and identify areas for improvement.
Okay, I'm listening. Break it down for me.
Sure. So let's say you're working on a mobile gaming app. Acquisition would refer to how you're getting new users to download and install your app. Are you using paid advertising, social media marketing, content marketing? You need to track where your users are coming from and how much it's costing you to acquire them.
Okay, so acquisition is all about getting those new users in the door. What about activation?
Activation is all about getting those new users engaged with your app. It's great if someone downloads your app, but if they never open it again, that's a problem.
Right, they need to actually use it and ideally become hooked.
Exactly. So you need to track things like how many users complete the tutorial, how many users make a purchase, or how many users invite their friends. These are all indicators that users are finding value in your app and are likely to stick around.
So activation is all about turning those casual users into engaged users. What about retention?
Retention is all about keeping those engaged users coming back for more. You want to see high levels of user engagement over time, not just a spike in activity when the app is first downloaded.
Makes sense. You don't want users to just try your app once and then forget about it. You want them to make it a part of their daily or weekly routine.
Exactly. And that's where tracking things like daily active users, weekly active users, and monthly active users comes in handy. These metrics give you a good sense of how sticky your app is and how well you're doing at keeping users engaged over the long term.
Okay, so we've got acquisition, activation, and retention. What about the last one? Monetization. Isn't that where the real magic happens?
Well, monetization is definitely important, especially if you're working on a product that's designed to generate revenue. But it's not just about making money. It's about making money in a way that's sustainable and doesn't alienate your users.
Right. You don't want to squeeze every last penny out of your users if it means they're going to have a negative experience and jump ship.
Exactly. So when it comes to monetization, you need to think carefully about your pricing strategy, your in-app purchase offerings, and your advertising strategy. You need to find the right balance between generating revenue and providing a positive user experience.
Okay, so the ARM framework: acquisition, activation, retention, monetization is basically a cheat sheet for understanding and analyzing product metrics. It helps you see the big picture and identify areas where you can improve your product and your business.
Exactly. It's a super useful tool to have in your back pocket, whether you're preparing for a product management interview or you're just trying to get a better handle on your product's performance.
So we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about practice, the circles method, estimation questions, and the ARM framework. But there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up this episode, and that's the importance of storytelling in product management interviews.
Oh yeah, storytelling is huge EE. It's not enough to just rattle off facts and figures. You need to be able to weave those details into a compelling narrative that captures the interviewer's attention and makes them want to learn more.
It's like you're not just presenting data, you're painting a picture with it. You're bringing your product to life and making the interviewer feel something.
Exactly. And the best way to do that is to focus on the user. At the end of the day, product management is all about solving problems for people. So when you're telling a story about a product you worked on, make sure you're putting the user front and center. Talk about the problem you were trying to solve for them, the solution you came up with, and the impact your product had on their lives.
And don't be afraid to get personal. Share your own experiences, your own challenges, your own triumphs. Let the interviewer see your passion for product management and your empathy for the user.
Absolutely. People connect with stories, especially stories that are authentic and relatable. So don't be afraid to let your personality shine through.
Okay, so storytelling is key. But here's a question. What if you're asked a question about a product or a company that you don't know much about? How do you tell a compelling story when you're starting from scratch?
That's a great question. And it's something that happens all the time in interviews. The key is to be prepared to think on your feet and to use your existing knowledge and experience to craft a plausible and engaging response.
So even if you're caught off guard, you can still impress the interviewer by showcasing your ability to think critically, make connections, and tell a good story.
Exactly. Remember, the interviewer isn't necessarily expecting you to be an expert on everything. They're more interested in seeing how you think, how you solve problems, and how you communicate your ideas.
So even if you don't have all the answers, don't panic. Just take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and tell the best story you can.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself with what you come up with.
That's actually really good advice for life in general, not just for product management interviews.
Totally. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, so it's important to be adaptable, resourceful, and always ready to tell your story.
Well said.
It's like you're on a stage, and the interviewer is your audience.
And you want to keep them engaged, right? No
Yeah.
one wants to listen to a dry, boring presentation.
Exactly. You need to bring energy, enthusiasm, and a little bit of showmanship. But it's not about being flashy or over the top. It's about being authentic and letting your passion for product management shine through.
So even if you're not a natural storyteller, you can still learn and improve this skill.
Absolutely. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, workshops that can help you develop your storytelling skills. And the more you practice, the more confident and compelling you become.
Okay, so storytelling, got it. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly. And speaking of how you say it, let's talk about communication in general, because that's another crucial aspect of product management interviews.
Yeah, you can have all the brilliant ideas in the world, but if you can't communicate them effectively, it's not going to get you very far.
Exactly. And when I say communication, I'm talking about everything from your verbal and written communication skills to your ability to listen actively, ask clarifying questions, and tailor your message to your audience.
So it's not just about talking, it's about listening and understanding the other person's perspective.
Exactly. And it's about being able to adjust your communication style depending on who you're talking to.
Like you wouldn't talk to an engineer the same way you'd talk to a marketing executive.
Right. You need to be able to speak their language, understand their priorities, and frame your ideas in a way that resonates with them.
That makes total sense. So communication is key, both in terms of storytelling and in terms of just being able to interact effectively with your interviewer.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Good communication is something that can be learned and practiced just like any other skill.
So even if you're not a natural-born communicator, there's still hope for you.
Totally. There are tons of resources out there that can help you improve your communication skills.
Okay, good to know. Now, we've talked a lot about the soft skills of product management interviews, but what about the hard skills? What kind of technical knowledge do you need to have going into these interviews?
That's a great question. And the answer is it depends. Different companies and different roles will have different technical requirements.
So there's no one-size-fits-all answer?
Not really. But there are some core technical areas that are pretty universal for product management roles, especially in the tech industry.
Like what?
Well, first and foremost, you need to have a solid understanding of how software is built and how it works. You don't need to be a software engineer, but you need to be able to speak their language, understand their constraints, and make informed decisions about product development.
So knowing a little bit of coding wouldn't hurt.
It definitely wouldn't. Even a basic understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript can go a long way in a product management interview.
Okay, what else?
Data analysis. Data is the lifeblood of any digital product, so you need to be comfortable working with data, analyzing data, and using data to make informed product decisions.
So brushing up on my Excel skills wouldn't be a bad idea.
Not at all. And if you really want to impress the interviewer, familiarize yourself with some more advanced data analysis tools like SQL or Python.
Noted. Anything else?
One more thing, A/B testing. This is a fundamental concept in product management, so make sure you understand what it is, how it works, and how to use it to optimize your product and improve key metrics.
A/B testing. Got it. It's like running mini experiments to see what resonates with users.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for making data-driven decisions and iterating quickly.
Okay, so we've got software development, data analysis, A/B testing. That's a lot of technical ground to cover.
It can feel overwhelming, but the good news is that you don't need to be an expert in everything overnight.
So how do you even begin to tackle this technical beast?
Start by identifying your strengths and weaknesses. What technical areas are you already comfortable with? What areas you need to brush up on? And then create a plan for yourself.
Like a study plan, but for product management technical skills.
Exactly. There are tons of online resources, courses, and tutorials that can help you fill in the gaps in your technical knowledge. And don't be afraid to ask for help from friends, colleagues, or mentors who have more technical experience than you.
So it's okay to admit that you don't know everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, admitting that you don't know something and then showing a willingness to learn is a huge plus in an interview. It demonstrates humility, curiosity, and a growth mindset, all qualities that are highly valued in product management.
Okay, that's really good to know. So we've talked about the soft skills, the communication skills, the technical skills. Is there anything else we need to cover before we move on to the grand finale of product management interviews?
You mean the behavioral questions?
The one and only. Those questions that make you dig deep into your past and dredge up examples of your greatest triumphs and, let's be honest, your biggest blunders.
Ah, yes, the behavioral questions.
Yeah,
The ones that can make or break an interview.
exactly. Because they're so open-ended, it's easy to go off on a tangent or give an answer that's completely irrelevant to what the interviewer is actually looking for.
That's true. But here's the thing. Behavioral questions aren't designed to trick you or catch you off guard. They're designed to get a better understanding of how you think, how you work, and how you handle different situations.
So they're really just trying to get to know you better, both as a professional and as a person.
Exactly. They want to know if you're a good fit for the company culture, if you have the right skills and experience for the role, and if you're someone they can see themselves working with day in and day out.
Okay, that makes sense. But it still feels nerve-wracking to have to come up with these stories on the spot, especially when you're already feeling the pressure of the interview.
I totally agree. That's why it's so important to prepare for behavioral questions in advance.
So what's the best way to do that? Do you just make a list of every possible behavioral question and write out a perfect answer for each one?
Well, you could try that, but honestly, I think there's a better way. Instead of trying to memorize a bunch of canned responses, I recommend using a framework called the STAR method.
The STAR method. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So STAR stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. It's a simple but effective way to structure your answers to behavioral questions in a way that's clear, concise, and easy for the interviewer to follow.
Okay, I'm listening. Break it down for me.
Sure. So let's say the interviewer asks you, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult teammate. Using the STAR method, you would start by describing the situation.
Like, what was the context? What was the project? Who were the key players?
Exactly. Then you would describe the task you were assigned. What was your role in this situation? What were you responsible for?
Okay, so far so good. Then what?
Then you would describe the action you took. What did you do to address the situation? What specific steps did you take?
Yeah.
And be specific. Don't just say, I talked to my teammate. Describe the conversation in detail. What did you say? How did they respond? What were the challenges you faced?
So it's all about painting a vivid picture for the interviewer.
Exactly. You want them to feel like they're right there with you, experiencing the situation firsthand. And finally, you would describe the result of your actions. What was the outcome of the situation? How did your actions impact the team or the project? Did you learn anything from the experience?
So the STAR method: situation, task, action, result is basically a roadmap for answering behavioral questions in a way that's clear, concise, and compelling.
Exactly. It helps you tell a complete story with a beginning, middle, and end. And it ensures that you're highlighting the most important details in a way that's easy for the interviewer to follow.
Okay, that's super helpful. So before we move on to the next section, let's recap what we've covered so far. We've talked about the importance of storytelling, communication skills, technical knowledge, and the STAR method for answering behavioral questions. Anything else we need to add to this product management interview survival kit?
Just one more thing, and it's a big one. Confidence.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, right? Especially when you're about to walk into a room full of strangers who are going to grill you about your skills and experience.
I know it can be nerve-wracking, but here's the thing. You've got this. You wouldn't have gotten this far in the interview process if they didn't already see something special in you.
So it's about reminding myself that I deserve to be there, that I have something valuable to offer, and that even if I don't get this particular job, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. It's about believing in yourself, owning your accomplishments, and showcasing your passion for product management.
And sometimes that means faking it till you make it, right? Like even if you're feeling nervous, just act confident, and eventually those feelings will catch up.
Exactly. Body language is huge. Stand up straight, make eye contact, smile, and project your voice. All of these things can help you feel more confident and in control.
Okay, so confidence is key, but how do you build that confidence, especially if you're feeling a little shaky going into an interview?
Preparation. That's the key to feeling confident and prepared for any interview. The more you prepare, the more confident you'll feel.
So that means practicing my answers to common interview questions, researching the company and the role, and maybe even doing a mock interview or two with a friend or mentor.
Exactly. And don't forget about the little things like planning your outfit the night before, getting a good night's sleep, and eating a healthy breakfast the morning of the interview.
Okay, so preparation is key. It's not just about what you know, it's about how you feel.
Exactly. When you feel confident and prepared, it shows. And that can make all the difference in an interview.
Awesome. So we've talked about the soft skills, the communication skills, the technical skills, the behavioral questions, and the importance of confidence. Now, let's talk about how to tie it all together and deliver a knockout performance on interview day.
Let's do it. Because at the end of the day, nailing that product management interview is all about making a great first impression, showcasing your skills and experience, and convincing the interviewer that you're the right person for the job.
Right. It's like a performance in a way. You want to put your best foot forward and leave a lasting impression.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how to do just that.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this episode, from understanding different interview types to crafting compelling stories to mastering those tricky behavioral questions. But now it's time to talk about what happens after the interview. Because let's be real, the waiting game can be brutal.
Tell me about it. It's like that time between hitting submit on a big project and waiting for the feedback. The anticipation can be killer.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what to DO during the interview, but what about what not to do? What are some common interview mistakes that can really hurt your chances of landing the job?
Oh, that's a great question. Because even the most qualified candidate can sabotage their chances by making some classic interview blunders.
So give it to me straight. What are the biggest interview sins you've seen? The ones that make you go, oh no, they didn't just.
Well, first on the list has to be bad-mouthing previous employers or coworkers. I mean, talk about a red flag. It screams lack of professionalism and potential drama magnet.
Yeah, even if your last boss was a supervillain straight out of a comic book, the interview room is not the place to air those grievances.
Exactly. It's much better to focus on the positive, highlight what you learned from those experiences, and frame any challenges as opportunities for growth.
So rule number 1, don't be a dirtbag. What else?
Being unprepared. It's amazing how many people show up for an interview without having done their homework on the company or the role.
It's like showing up to a potluck with empty hands. You're expected to bring something to the table, and in this case, it's your knowledge and enthusiasm.
Exactly. Take the time to research the company, their product, their competitors, their target audience. Come prepared with thoughtful questions that show you're genuinely interested and engaged.
And speaking of questions, not asking A and Y is another big no-no, right? It makes you seem uncurious, or even worse, like you're not really that interested in the opportunity.
It's like they're offering you a free trip to explore a new city, and you're like, nah, I'm good.
Of course you want to ask questions. This is your chance to learn more about the role, the company, and the team. Plus, it shows you're an active listener and that you're thinking critically.
Okay, so be prepared, be engaged, ask questions. What else should we avoid, like the plague in a product management interview?
Rambling. It's so easy to get nervous and start talking a mile a minute, but trust me, it's not doing you any favors. Especially when you're answering those behavioral questions that require a bit more context. It's like you're trying to stuff an entire season of a TV show into a 2-minute trailer.
That's a great analogy. It's much better to be concise, to the point, and to focus on the most important details. Remember, the interviewer's time is precious, so make every word count.
So take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and try to deliver your answers in a clear and concise way.
Exactly. Practice your answers beforehand, but don't memorize them word for word. You want to sound natural and conversational, not like you're reciting a script.
Right, because even though we're talking about avoiding mistakes, you don't want to come across as too robotic or rehearsed. It's about finding that balance between being prepared and being authentic.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, they want to hire a human being, not a robot. So let your personality shine through, show them who you are, and don't be afraid to be yourself.
Now, even if you manage to avoid all the major interview pitfalls, there's still one final hurdle you need to clear the follow-up. What's the etiquette here? Is it too eager to send a thank you note immediately after the interview, or should you wait a few days to strike while the iron is still hot?
This is where a little bit of strategy comes in handy. A thank you note is always a good idea, but timing is key. Sending a quick email within 24 hours of the interview is a great way to show your appreciation for their time and reiterate your interest in the role.
So don't hesitate, just hit send.
Exactly. Keep it brief, professional, and personalize it to each interviewer if you can. Mention something specific you discussed during the interview to jog their memory.
And if you haven't heard back after a week or so, is it okay to follow up again? Or is that venturing into annoyingly persistent territory?
It's a fine line, but a well-crafted follow-up email can be a good way to stay top of mind. Just keep it brief, professional, and reiterate your interest in the role.
And if you still don't hear back?
Well, sometimes No news is just no news. It's not always a reflection on you. There could be a million reasons why they haven't gotten back to you yet.
So don't torture yourself with what-ifs or assume the worst.
Exactly. Focus on what you can control, which is continuing to network, refine your skills, and pursue other opportunities.
Well, there you have it. We've covered everything from A to Z on acing those product management interviews, from the initial preparation to the final follow-up.
We've talked about the importance of storytelling, communication, technical knowledge, behavioral questions, and of course, confidence.
But most importantly, we've emphasized that the key to success is being authentically you. Because at the end of the day, that's what will make you stand out from the crowd and land you your dream job.
Absolutely. Now go out there and knock them dead. And don't forget to let us know how it goes. We're always here to celebrate your wins and offer support along the way.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.